Morning, everyone, and welcome to our Heavenly Parent Holy Community, Oceania Hundoke, with Reverend Yutaki Yamada. Today being Thursday, the 10th of June, or the 1st of May, in the 9th year of Chongalguk. So let's begin by offering a bow to our Heavenly Parent and True Parents. Chariot, Kyombe, Paro. And let's recite our family pledge both in Korean and English. Thank you.
가정 멘세 7. 전일국 주인, 우리 가정은 참 사랑을 중심하고 본연의 혈통과 연결된 위하는 생활을 통하여 심존 문화 세계를 완성할 것을 맹세하나이다.
Family pledge number 7. Our family, the owner of Chongalguk, pledges through living for the sake of others to perfect the world based on the culture of heart, which is rooted in the original lineage by centering on true love. I'd like to ask Daniela if she could offer the opening prayer today. Thank you.
We are so grateful, Heavenly Parent, that we can come together in our hearts and in our minds as a community, Heavenly Parent. It's so precious to be able to pray together. It's so precious to be able to be there for each other as we grow and we embody what you wanted, what you dream, what you created us for, Heavenly Parent. We embody your love, Heavenly Parent, as we eliminate all the behaviors, all the patterns that have been set in the past, Heavenly Parent. And we continue to become freer, to actually receive your true love. Heavenly Parent, we long so much to be there for our true parents, to say with all our hearts and with our lives, with our connection, everyday connection to them, to what they went through for us. And not only that, Heavenly Parent, that we understand them. We understand that they've given everything, and as we learn to become true children for them, Heavenly Father, to embody real love, then we can comfort their heart as parents of humanity, as people who have taken full on, Heavenly Parent, this task. So we're so grateful to have each other. We promise you, Heavenly Parent, that we will keep working on truly making a substantial effort, Heavenly Parent, to feel how precious we are, each one of us, and to have compassion towards each other, Heavenly Parent, when understanding that each one of us is growing and becoming this community, Heavenly Parent, that embodies everything, embodies love, compassion, embodies joy to be with each other, embodies the capacity to create, Heavenly Parent, to create this beautiful this beautiful place, this beautiful environment where there is love and joy and space for everyone to be free and to trust. And this is the dream. This is what we want to create, Heavenly Parent. We thank you. We thank you and support each other, especially the ones who are really taking more responsibility. Want to always appreciate Heavenly Parent, each and every one, and want to offer this day to you and the promise that we're going to keep working together and we're going to be reaching your dream, Heavenly Parent. We offer this prayer to you this morning. None of our names, and Douglas and Daniela, Adilucci Grino, bless Central Family, Arju. Amen.
Arju, thank you. Thank you, everyone, and let's join together and offer a welcome to Reverend Yutaka as he shares with us this morning. Thank you.
Good morning, our brothers and sisters. Thank you for joining today's morning Hundoke. Today's 119 days. Really, I appreciate everyone to come together to put our heart to offer our gratitude and sincere devotion to our Heavenly Parents and to parents. Really grateful to go together. So today also we will begin today's Hundoke. So all brothers and sisters, really thank you very much. Thank you very much, everyone. And also every day you are sharing is also really appreciating. Yesterday also Reverend Ito or Mrs. Alai or also many people share your experience and your thinking. When we now are sharing about mother's autobiography, now we are talking about the media part. So 1975, this is one of the important year to further send the missionary to all over the world. So when they sent the missionary to the world, so as the missionary, what kind of status, what kind of position do they have and enter to the nation? They went there as just a tourist or a businessman or a missionary or how? Then three parents establish the Sekai Nippo in that year. That's why they could enter as the journalist, as the spokesman or journalist of Sekai Nippo. So when we see those time period and providence together, we could see media is not only for media. For example, Little Angels is not only for showing the performance, everything interconnected. Through establishing the media company, also people could become the journalist to share the right message and even could have a good status to enter each nation to serve and support. Little Angels is also not only showing the performance, also there is kind of the good method to meet the head of states and also prime minister or share the culture, emissary and the ambassador of heaven. So when we see those providence or true parents plan, everything interconnected, not only one purpose, not only one way. This one is connecting to another purpose together. And also there is the Yoido rally in Korea. So all providence is coming together. That's why now Turmada is sharing about media, about culture, but behind of that, each providence, each mission or each story is really connected well. So when we see this behind connection, then our understanding and our artistic relationship become deeper and deeper. So we could always imagine about what kind of things was happening and going on behind also. So let's continue today. In early 1981, when my husband and I heard the Washington Star, the conservative voice in Washington, D.C. was closing down, we were concerned. There were two well-established newspapers in that city, the Washington Star and Washington Post. The Washington Star, which has been in operation for over 130 years, had run into financial difficulties. Soon, there would be only one newspaper in the most politically powerful city of the United States, and that newspaper, the Washington Post, was left leaning in its editorial stance. After establishing the Sekai Nippo in Japan, their parents also searching and concerned about America's situation together. So how three parents establish the Washington Times? So at that moment, one of the major newspapers in Washington, D.C., Washington Star, is going to close down almost. And that was on the society. That's why this is also one of preparation by God. So operating newspaper company is really not simple things and not easy things. And among that situation, one of the important newspaper, Washington Star, which is representing about conservative voice, almost closing down. Then what's happened? Only Washington Post is remaining. Then three parents decided about this Washington Star. There was a need for a newspaper in Washington that would protect faith, freedom, and family values, and no American conservatives were willing to step into the breach. When my husband and I decided to take this on, people trying to be prudent and wise told us again and again that it would be difficult to publish a new newspaper in the capital of the United States. We had never sailed away from a task because it was difficult, and we didn't then. Protecting the faith, freedom, and family value. This is really important because what is the Washington Star? This is the conservative newspaper, almost more than 130 years history. That kind of a traditional newspaper, but almost closing down and disappearing. So what about this influence? How much this has the influence to the society, not only Washington, even for America and even for the world. So when three parents saw protection about faith, freedom, family value, this seriously three parents concerned and think that. And in Washington, no American conservatives were willing to step into breach. So what do you think about this? Of course, maybe many conservative American people is worried that, but in the same time, step into this meaning is to carry on this newspaper company. Do you think this is also easy things or not? Carrying on this task or the things to bring out again as the conservative newspaper. This is really not simple things. That's why three parents even receive many kind of opposition also, and many kind of advice or many kind of word from others to stop, better not to do. but finally they determined to carry on that. So please think about your nation. How about your nation's media? There is both media, the conservative one and also liberal one. There are two kinds of media, newspaper or media company in your nation, or only one side. How is Australia? There are two kinds of the newspaper, or only one side, or both sides is not good. So we have to see what kind of media is speaking or delivering the right message or righteous message or truth. That's why thinking about media is really important. How we can guide or talk or discuss with media person or media company. Even it's difficult for us to have the media company in our nation, but in making the relationship with media, journalists, and to guide and work together to the right way and righteous voice, this is also one of our mission, one of our responsibility. On May 17, 1982, after a great deal of effort to find a building and printing presses and hire competent, dedicating staff, the first issue of the Washington Times was published. Opponents said that the Washington Times would be a propaganda installment for the Unification Church, but such was reflected prejudice. It is difficult these days to run a newspaper at a profit, and the Washington Times lost money from the outset. Yet its absence would leave no conservative newspaper in the US capital. It would mean the newspaper that championed faith and family would have disappeared. Seeing the financial spreadsheets, people wondered how long until they closed down. So on May 17, 1982, two parents established the Washington Times. So economically, financially, it's not easy and receive many kind of opposition. And people also just wondering and looking at how long until they close down. But in order to protect the voice of conservative, three parents guide and protect and establish the Washington Times. So we could see how really that kind of situation, even people is thinking how long until they close down. Mother share continuously. Nonetheless, the more they doubted us, the greater was my husband and I and husband's and my faith, and the greater was the commitment of the Washington Times staff. Together with them, we resolutely defended democracy while advocating family values, morality, and the role of women. As a result, the newspaper's popularity grew. Every year, the paper did better, and now in the age of the internet, it is one of the most influential newspapers in the United States. So whenever the more they doubted us, the greater was my husband's and my faith, and the greater was the commitment of the Washington Times staff. So because of the persecution, because of their doubt, also the commitment, and also their determination getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and protect the family value and women's family value, morality, and the role of women. So when you get that information for the society. Usually, where do you get the information or news about society? Are you reading the newspaper well in this day? Or are you just getting the information from internet? Where do you get?
Internet.
Internet. So through internet, what kind of device or what kind of media company?
The variety is astounding. It's the comparison between mass media and the internet is the mass media hits it like a hammer with one point of view in the middle of your head. It's like brainwashing. The internet, you get 100,000 different opinions, and you have to work it out like network in your own brain. You actually have to think.
Yeah. Yes. So basically internet, so several information, not only one company or two company or three company, right? So now era was totally changed. We could get the information from internet. So in the internet, of course, there are too many information maybe now, not only 3 or 5, more than 100, really many kind of influence and many kind of information. So we are receiving the information from the internet. So anyway, through the media, people is receiving the information. That's why how to give the influence and how to share the right message. This is really important. I talk one Korean brother about the Korean media. So recently, little bit complicated in the Korea political situation, right? Maybe someone know about Korean political situation. And he share now little bit left side in the Korean government. And there are many kind of media also. And there are many kind of people is speaking as a standing in the right side, kind of the conservative point of view. But actually that person original purpose is left. But showing to the right way, showing or supporting conservative way, but also making destroy or making another way. So really now we could see which media and what kind of information really right or not, and how we can choose and how we can distinguish. So really our responsibility, our knowledge and our role individually really important. Otherwise, really each nation, we don't know how this nation is going on. So to the parents, mother, father, really concerned about media influence and the role of media. So now mother is really emphasizing about education and gathering of media, and we ourselves is same. As audience or as the listener, we can choose the news among more than 100 information, but in the same time, we have to also stand the position to give the information, to share the information to the society. So if there is media or there is journalists in our country, we have to find a way to meet that person and share our value, and also to send a message in the standing point, the side of media. This is also our important role. How many media, how many journalists do we know? Do we have a friend in media, or just we are receiving information? We have to go the next level, how we can share and give the right message and right information. That's why even we are difficult to have the newspaper company, but now each of us can become the journalist through YouTube or many kind of way, and even we can approach the journalist or this media. So even not easy, but we cannot give up that. We have to find a way how to find that kind of role. That's why Washington Times, actually Washington Times is not only for America, not only for Washington, this is also for the world. So if we have a plan. If we have a strong determination, we can utilize about Washington Times. We can ask them to send a journalist to our country. Even we can become the journalist. Even we can prepare to make a branch of the Washington Times. Washington Times Australia, Washington Times New Zealand, Samoa. I think this is also possible. So we have to concern media side, not only just the reading, but also how we can deliver the right message and the right information to the society. So when we see the True Parents history of Providence, when they established the Sekai Nippo in Japan, True Parents in the same time send the missionary as the journalist to each nation to share the right message. So when we see the one things, not only just watching from the one point of view, even we have to see from the several point of view and think together. At a banquet to commemorate the 15th anniversary of the newspaper's founding, we received congratulatory message from well-known leaders worldwide. Former US President Ronald Reagan let people know that we played a key role in defeating communism when he set off the newspaper. Like me, you arrived in Washington at the beginning of the most momentous decade of the century. Together, we rolled up our sleeves and got to work. And oh, yes, we won the Cold War. So Ronald Reagan, we know this story well. When he ran the presidential election, how our True Parents gave the role or influence for the election that moment to support Ronald Reagan, President Ronald Reagan. That time there was election with Ronald Reagan and at that moment current president Jimmy Carter. That was election was happened. So how Ronald Reagan won the election. So that time there was a newspaper before Washington Times. It was called News World. And through father called Dr. Bohi Park, who was president of News World, then asked him to write the paper about victory of Ronald Reagan. And finally, Ronald Reagan won the election. Maybe you know this famous story. Please see this one. So this is the News World Reagan landslide. So American people saw this one. Then, you know, when this newspaper was published, this one is not after the election. This one was published before election. And America's election time, the time, time is different. East Coast, Central Coast, and West Coast time is different. So some people, even before going into the election, and they saw this newspaper, Reagan landslide, already they saw, already election was over. Already, almost this Reagan was won. That's why, okay, if Reagan was won, I want to support Reagan. That's why even the person who didn't go to election yet, but when saw this newspaper, they thought, I want to go this side together. So they bought Reagan that time. So we could see this is a great strategy. So when Reagan left the White House after 8 years in office, he specially invited President Park Bo-hee to the White House and said, I owe the greatest debt of gratitude to the Washington Times, without which I would never have been able to promote the Reagan doctrine during my 8 years in office. Please convey my deepest gratitude to Reverend Boone, the founder of the Washington Times. So from that moment, Ronald Reagan totally support the news world and Washington Times. So almost 8 years of his presidential time period, Washington Times has the strong role, took the important role for American political providence together. That's why Ronald Reagan really appreciate and also gratitude to our true father and our true parents. So you could see this is Pohibak and Ronald Reagan. So that story is really important. Maybe someone was in that time in the election. I think maybe if you are there, or maybe our member was so much excited, serious, but also excited, right? Well, really, you spend a great time in the each providential time period. So we could see those stories. In current situation, we cannot do those kind of way, right? If we say something, but already internet era, world era is different. So, but that time is the really most important moment and really great strategy. So the conservative side, one presidential election, one president decision of America really changed the world and changed the nation's future. Vietnam, China, Russia, Africa, Europe, all nations' future is really depend on also America's president decision. That much America's influence is big in the society. So how true parents work together with America, we could see those investment and also the effort. Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher of the United Kingdom also expressed her gratitude. She sent greeting saying, "In difficult times, even more than in easy ones, the voice of conservatism must make itself heard in the media. It isn't always easy, but of this we can be sure. While the Washington Times is alive and well, conservative views will never be drowned out." So British England Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher also sharing like this about Washington Times. So that much Washington Times is giving the influence to the society. The Washington Times is influential, yet it is not a newspaper appealing only to the elite. It represents all people and inspires citizens to live decent and healthy everyday lives. The Washington Times has established itself as a voice of truth for people all over the world. So this message is really good message. The Washington Times has established itself as a voice of truth for people all over the world. That much people love Washington Times and also appreciate and the gratitude and grateful. So Sekai Nippo, this is Japanese one, and the News World before Washington Times, and also last one is Washington Times. So now today we are sharing about the news and media. We can once again think about the role of media and also the involvement and effort and investment of true parents toward media. So role of media and even protecting of Washington Times. This is how much important. The last Rally of Hope 6, you could see many top leaders of America attended together to the Rally of Hope. The former Vice President Mike Pence and Pompeo, or the Honorable Esper, or several persons come together. But do you know why they can come? Because of Washington Times. Newspaper has that much influence. That's why even 30 years ago or 40 years ago, true parents already have this kind of plan and establish Washington Times. Even there is no profit, even losing money continuously, but the parents invest to protect media. Through this one, can protect the conservative, can protect to the people's value, to family, and also freedom, and also the voice of women, all things. So through our True Mothers sharing, we can understand again, and we could feel that how much seriously True parents carry on those providence, even receiving many kind of opposing word, and finally showing and leading the world of freedom and also the democratic. So today we're sharing so we can connect again, pray again, and really find our Heavenly Parents' will and True Parents' will. And also, then how about our society? How about our nation? About media? We have to seriously think, and we have to seriously make a plan to make a right voice, truth, and also share the important message to the society and nation. So thank you, our all brothers and sisters, to join this morning Hundoke. Let's have a great day and great moment. Thank you very much once again. 감사합니다.
Thank you very much, Reverend Yutaka. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, wow, a lot of inspiration from, and we got lots of people already eager. First was Seti. Go ahead, Seti, get your hand up, and then Steve after that.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Reverend Yutaka, brothers and sisters. Yesterday, Reverend Yutaka asked me which of the two parties, FAST Party or the Human Rights Protection Party in Samoa, that our Oceania region should pray for. Yeah, been a dramatic change here in Samoa, and I see the media is a big influence. This FAST Party is literally was very fast. It didn't exist a little while ago. It just came out of nowhere, and some of the HRPP party members defected and gave a backbone to that. But the way that media portrays our elections at the moment is very, very one-sided. It reminds me of the media work on Trump, what's been done with our Prime Minister here. But in fact, I think the Prime Minister's, the current Prime Minister's side is more the conservative in some ways, but the way that FAST is behaving is very aggressive, and so I would, at this time I think I would side more with the current government. Yeah, and our two main newspapers here, Savali is a government owned, and Observer, Samoan Observer is a free press, and always been the knocker on the government, that's for sure. But I think we really lack and I've always said, so I'm grateful that Reverend Yutaka mentioned about Washington Times, because I've always felt that I wish we had a regional conservative voice, because I would looking at New Zealand and Australia, it's the same. There's a strong liberal LGBT lobby, etc. They're strong voice, and especially through media. So we really need a strong conservative backbone here in Oceania, and so I've been a journalist here with the Observer in the 90s, and it is true, as missionaries, we need to be up with the play on what's happening in our nations, and looking through the journalist's eyes is very important. to see who's who and what's what. Certainly that's how I got to know who was who and what's what in Samoa, was through driving a taxi and being a journalist. So yeah, I would really, I wish for Washington Times Pacific or Washington Times Oceania or something like that to come as soon as possible. I already mentioned that to, who was it, the leader of what's his name, Washington Times, the one who came to
Tom McDevitt.
Sydney recently.
Tom McDevitt.
So yeah, but that's our responsibility. That's Oceania's responsibility, is to run with that and make it happen. Yeah, so if you were to ask me who would I pray for right now, I think I would pray for the HRPP, the current government, and yeah, and also the way that the new party's working is very aggressive and very it's not in keeping with our cultural traditions, which is important in our nation. We don't play by the same rules as, say, New Zealand or Australia or other nations. So we have to be sensitive to the culture, and these people are not playing by the same rules. Yeah, thank you for that.
Right, thank you. So lots of people put their hands up. First was Steve, and then Jeff, and then Kenji, and then Jacinta. Okay, go ahead, Steve.
Good morning, everyone. My heart is turning to Tom McDevitt these days. Susan and I are in touch with him, not infrequently. Today is his birthday. So we sent him birthday greetings last night as he had awakened in the States. And this is a very, very special, unique man. If you take a look on the internet, you can see his lectures that in the 80s he gave, and there's a whole series of them. You can sense his heart and his intelligence and his humility. His grasp of the principle internally is wonderful. He also is so gifted in communications. He heads up not only IMAP, International Association of Media for Peace, but also ED, which is Economic Development internationally as well. And he's chairman of the Washington Times Foundation. And you'll find anyone who is connected, politicians or even people on the street that have a more conservative bent, they know the Washington Times. And when Susie and I met our Queensland opposition party members and leader here in our hometown here of Caramundi a couple of months ago, we had several points we wanted to make to those MPs who had portfolios. And one of them was the real lack of a conservative voice here in Australia. You have some that have a perspective, but when we were addressing the issue in Victoria regarding this egregious bill that came into law with no opposition from the lower house, from anybody, we addressed this to the politicians up here, and we said that, were you aware? Have you read this in the media? And they said no. We get it through our own channels. And I said that this is an indication that we need the Washington Times in this country, and we need financial backing to achieve that. And I said, we need to talk about that, how to do that. And they agreed. They agreed that that's something that is required. And even when we reached out to what is considered conservative, they wouldn't meet with us. There's a team of us who were working together, trying to understand what was going on and what we could do about it. These are religious and some political leaders across New South Wales, Victoria, and Queensland in January. So there is an awareness of the Washington Times, and I think we can build it. We talked to Tom about this several times, and he was going to have his international editor get in touch with us, but there's been some change of leadership in that position internationally. We haven't heard from that person yet. But in any event, let's say a prayer for him. He is a special man, really loves True Mother so much. And he has lost his wife some years ago and raised several sons alone. But yeah, my heart goes out to Tom because he's such a special leader who loves Oceania. He loved his trip down here and had great experiences in Oceania historically and in Asia. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Steve. Next is Jeff. Go ahead.
Yeah, anyway, a bit of history of New Zealand. Back in the 70s, we actually had a printing press and like a workshop, and we were publishing at that time. We had a lot of members then, about 70, very talented brothers writing for Kausa. And yeah, so we printed, we used to print a magazine called Pioneer. It was a bit like the Today's World, sort of that same makeup. Yeah, anyway, that's a little bit of history on New Zealand. Yeah, so anyway, I feel so much, I don't know, many things, lack of manpower really, because we have such incredible understanding to share, and we need to really, anyway, need to be busy finding people and sharing this vision so we can yeah, bring people together, because everything is there for us. The ball is really in our court with such incredible content and example from Washington Times. And I'm really, I feel so challenged by our Father without any resources, you know, starting the Washington Times, such an expensive operation. And often we feel so limited ourselves because we also have lack of resources and finance, but it never seemed to worry Father. He still did and gained incredible forces around him to make that incredible endeavor. Yeah, that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeff. Okay, Kenji, go ahead.
Good morning, leaders, brothers and sisters of Oceania. Yeah, when I was told that about the media, so so I cannot help but put my hands up as I came here. New Zealand originally came as the media missionaries, as I participated in the workshop for the World Times to dispatch the the media missionary to all over the world, which was held in 1997. And in Washington Times, established in 1982. By the way, I really appreciate for the Reverend Yutaka, the giving, the bring us the all details based upon the True Mother's memoir, and all the memories came back to me. Anyway, 1997, that's the year of my graduation from the UTS. That was time for the True Washington Times, the 15 years anniversary. And based upon that foundation, True Father decided to send the media missionary to 30 countries. And in Oceania region, the New Zealand is the just country that yeah, the missionary was sent. That's me. And I somehow sorry that I haven't been able to really they made the much result yet. But anyhow, as we have seen a lot of the positive influence by the Washington Times, and we see a lot of the witnesses even in the Australia and New Zealand and all over the countries. And as the Washington Times is established for the not only for the America but also the for the world. And I was really amazed by the Honorable David Clark, who is one of the representatives in the Embassy of Peace in Australia. And when I talked with him, when I was with him at the World Summit in 2020, he was almost a spokesman of the Washington Times in Australia. So he really loves the Washington Times, and now is a time when we really need to not necessarily to put the name tag of the Washington Times in our region, but we should be able to set up the affiliated institution with the Washington Times. It can be called the World Times or whatever. Anyway, many people, conservative people, are concerned about the kind of one-way message from the major media, and so we are trying to organize some conservative organization, conservative voice to together to signal. And one of the privilege is that now is the age of the internet. And when I was assigned to be here media missionary, I collected all the information to set up the printed company, how we can establish a company here in New Zealand. But well, many obstacles. But nowadays, just we need to have one computer and right mindset and right the ideology of the interdependence, mutual prosperity, universal shared value. That's time for us to really start something. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay, go ahead, Jacinta.
Good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be able to join you. I joined late because we had a power outage. Yeah, I'd like to come back to Samoa. And Seti mentioned that there are two media in Samoa, two newspapers. There's also, I think, a very influential one online, which is how I'm keeping up with what's going on in Samoa. It's called Samoa Global News. So I'm not sure this has got any footprint in Samoa itself in terms of the hard copy, but it's certainly informing the views of Samoans living in Australia and New Zealand. When I first heard the election result 25-25 for HRPP and FAST, my feeling was that God really wants both sides to work together. And, you know, we keep talking about headwind ideology and, you know, how we should be walking the middle path, embracing both right and left. So throughout all this, even before the election, I've been praying for God's will to be done in Samoa's election. If you look at the leaders, I concur with Seti that the current leader who's actually attended True Parents in Korea and has supported our movement a lot, he's a family man. He's got, I think, 8 children, many grandchildren. He's had one daughter, I think, working at the UN, working at the embassy in America, you know, in close association with the UN. Yeah, whereas if you look at the leader of the FAST party, she's single, she never married. Yeah, which is not really, you know, our vision for life. But then I noticed somebody put in the chat that HRP is definitely pro-China and FAST seems to be not. So it's not easy to actually say one side or the other, I think. One thing that we are doing here is we're offering a spiritual condition. We've actually liberated the parents, liberated and blessed. So they're absolute spirits in the spirit world of the head of state, both the leader and the deputy leader of both sides, the FAST and the HRPP. So we're calling on them to give spiritual inspiration, you know, of course, with their understanding of, you know, true parents, the value of true parents and the value of the blessing. And that can work, you know, from the spirit world. I think there's quite a few people in Samoa who are quite spiritual, including the wife of the head of state. Just one last thing I'd like to say is that Samoa, actually the editor or former editor of Samoa Observer, Seno Salvea Malifa, he actually wrote a letter in support of the establishment of the Oceania Peace Embassy back in, whenever it was, 2003 or something, together with a couple of others. So yeah, I think I would be supporting the idea of having some sort of Oceania-wide media outlet, which can be online, like Kenji just mentioned. Yeah, And the Fast Party actually has got a lot of support in Australia and New Zealand, including monetary support. Yeah, so I think it's time for, Oceania to, heavenly influence, the nations in our region. Thank you.
Jacinta, I wanted to agree with that, really there's so much social media. There's a lot of different channels of reporting on this election. And that's what I'm talking about, that we really need an Oceania-wide, media influence, because what people are saying from Australia, from America, from American Samoa, from New Zealand is being read. And we, it's very different here in Samoa. We know the situation, but it's being colored by voices coming from overseas. Even the BBC is coming in and saying, pushing for this new party, which is really ridiculous. They don't have a say. They've got nothing to do with our nation. They don't know what's happening in Samoa. So we really, it's time for our media down here in Oceania. We need a media that, because we are one nation, literally, through the islands, Tonga, Fiji. We got connections in Australia, New Zealand, America, Europe, everywhere. We're not a singular nation. So what happens on our island is influenced by the diaspora. So this is what we have to move as a region. We have to really make this happen as soon as possible. Yeah, it's frustrating as national leaders. Sometimes we're trying to do something, and yet we get these influences from foreign voices that have nothing to do with the reality on the ground.
Yeah, we got Doug has been very eager to say something. Go ahead, but very last person, because we have over time. Okay.
I think we could all agree on many things, and I really appreciated what Kenji Watanabe said about the internet. It's all true. Father used to say that CARP was the point of the arrow, in proclaiming True Parents' vision on these matters and issues. So in the history of the development of achieving, things like the Washington Times, it started with our, spokespersons on college campuses like CARP doing VOC and things like that. And what they did was they invited local radio spokespersons to become aware of their work. The history that I'm trying to point out is that radio played a very big part in our achieving the success of both the news world and the Washington Times. And they're like in a relationship with each other of support. So from the very beginning, even before we had News World, it was our VOC lecturers who got to know people like Bob Grant, a radio talk show host, Barry Farber in New York City, radio talk show host. So by knowing them and reaching out to them as we can through the internet to these kinds of people, when Father opened up the news world, Bob Grant, he was the lone conservative voice in New York City, and he became a journalist for the news world. And Barry Farber, he became a journalist. They were the two biggest radio talk shows in New York City. They gave actually birth to the whole radio talk show host. While at the same time in California, I think the brother's name was Bob Selly. He had a 40-year friendship with a radio talk show host. When he was in California, he was doing CARP, Sacramento. He invited Rush Limbaugh to come, and the campus went up in an uproar trying to prevent Rush Limbaugh from showing up. He was just a radio voice in Sacramento at the time. But he was so taken by the presentations of Causa and VOC, so encouraged that they kept a 40-year friendship. And Rush Limbaugh, eventually, he passed away last year. He had a 90 million voice radio talk show host. And for decades, every day he listed Washington Times says Washington Times, the Washington Times. So these radio talk show hosts were really on our side as we went, and they brought their audiences to our newspapers. And it's just an amazing thing what happened, and how they helped each other and really reach people. So from what Kenji Watanabe says, each one of us can find our favorite, talk show or something like that, and just start reaching out to them and presenting all this information through the internet much more rapidly than having to have the whole setup on college campus. The internet is the forum. So, thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Sorry, we've gone a bit over time, but I'll just share our screen and we can do our final unison prayer together, and we can pray about all these points. Thank you. Let's begin. Jew. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day, and
Good day.
see you tomorrow. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
God bless everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Yeah.